instead of checking it down to the running back in the flat, he's going to be like, I can make something happen with my legs. So I think that's why, you sort of don't really know. Like, I agree. Like, you don't really know. Like, is Jalen not good at hitting the running back out of the backfield? It's because I don't think he does it very often, just because he'd rather keep the ball in his hands. But a name to watch with that, especially like if you want to break a running back out in the slot, is Kenny Gainwell. Like, I sort of thought he had an up and down rookie season. The touchdown production was really good. Sorry for fantasy owners who had a Miles Sanders. But
Miles.
that's tough.
The big goose egg, yeah.
Yeah, seriously. But no, I think Kenny Gainwell could definitely have a bigger role in the second year. I think he showed enough last year to sort of make you feel like he's going to be a part of their running back rotation for a while.
You got your Mac guys on Birds 365. We'll bring a third into the mix because it's the Philadelphia Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer. EJ Smith joins us here on Birds 365. And if EJ, this is your maiden voyage with us, welcome aboard.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. This is my first time on the show, but hopefully not my last time. Hopefully I don't screw it up too bad.
Trying to get EJ on. Glad we finally worked it out. Good to see you, even though I saw you yesterday. But so let's before we get to Jonathon Gannon, I want to. We got a lot of time with him yesterday, EJ. But I do want to talk about Andy Weidl leaving. Because that happened kind of late last night when the news broke. And I think, a lot of us said there's a good chance Andy was going to leave, but I think it kind of threw everybody off for a loop. Nobody knew the Steelers were looking for a GM and an assistant. So, but from the Eagles' perspective, when you start looking at it in hindsight and you see Tom Donahoe, who's kind of his mentor, whether he's pushed out the door or he really retired. They moved on from Casey Weidl a year early. Didn't seem like the Eagles were bending over backwards to try to keep Andy Weidl. You think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I mean, you said it right there. I think the writing was kind of on the wall that, something was probably going to happen with Andy Weidl. Just when you look at all the people he was closest with in the front office left last week. It was Tom Donahoe and, before that, Casey Weidl, his brother. So I do think that, signs were pointing on him not staying. I mean, if they were really trying hard to keep him, they probably wouldn't have done those two things. So I just think that it seems like they're definitely moving the front office in a different direction at this point, at least, especially on the personnel side. And yeah, I think that, it's a bit cleaner with Andy Weidl going somewhere else. I was surprised to see him take an assistant GM job. I thought, it seemed like he was definitely a finalist for the Steelers GM job. And, I guess, he probably evaluated his options and saw that I can go work in my hometown. It's a city that I'm really passionate about and work for a guy who I assume he knows Omar Khan pretty well. And, it's still technically a promotion, to go from, VP of player personnel to assistant GM. So, it's still a move up in his mind, I'm sure. So, yeah, I'm sure it made sense, but it's definitely it's a big loss for the Eagles front office.
EJ, if the Eagles are, as you say, moving in a new direction with their front office, simple question, why?
Well, I think that they have to evaluate the structure of things first and foremost. I mean, they've lost so many people in the last few years, and I think that's the biggest why. Is it's just like it's hard to keep replacing people over and over again. And I think the fact that they don't have the assistant GM title is probably something they're going to have to address. They've lost 4 people to that title this year, and it's hard to keep people when they can just get a better job elsewhere, more prestigious title. So I think the structure is going to have to change, and I do think that they're just going to have to figure out how they can stop losing people so often. It's nice to have people in demand like that, and it should bode well as they hire people that people see. If I come in here, I can move up, whether it's here or elsewhere. But I do think that they have to find ways to make sure that people are incentivized to stay with the structure of things, and make sure that they have people who will stay. So
what do you think, EJ, is the reticence to call somebody assistant GM? Who cares? A title's a title. I encourage everybody, and obviously I'm older than EJ, so I don't know if you ever watched Cheers on Netflix, but there's a great episode of Cheers, and everybody should watch that show. But where, they didn't have money to give anybody raises, so they gave them titles, and everybody was happy. Everybody was happy with a title. It cost nothing. Who cares? Call Andy Weidel assistant GM instead of vice president player personnel. Why do you think Howie Roseman is so headstrong with that mentality?
I guess he likes that he's the sole person in the front office that oversees both football operations and personnel. But I agree with you. I mean, you can have an assistant GM, and it's kind of the first day they step into their fancy new office with their fancy new placards. You go, by the way, you're really just running the personnel department. Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. I suppose that if you go into a job interview as an assistant GM trying to be a GM and they ask you what you do every day and you say, I oversee personnel and I don't know anything about football ops, I guess, that's part of it for these people. But I mean, I really do think that after the way this offseason has gone, they really might not have a choice. I mean, at some point, they're going to just have to address that by making that position something that people can, access in their building, because people just keep leaving for it. So
I think it's pretty obvious that Howie Roseman doesn't want anyone else in the organization referred to as general manager, even if it has ass in front of it. He's just not going to go there. So you just give up on that happening with the Eagles anytime soon. All right, let's go back out onto the field, DJ. Yesterday, you got your first chance, at least as a media group, to talk to James Bradberry. What do you make of him as a guy?
He seems like a funny guy. I would say that the thing that stood out to me the most is, he was trying to hold his tongue, but he was still honest about how he felt about the way that things went down in New York. He got asked what he thought of the timing, and he said, well, first of all, I know it's a business, and I can put my business hat on and understand why they did what they did, but personally, didn't love it. Didn't appreciate getting cut at that point in the offseason where teams didn't really have money, and there was just not as many opportunities for him to sign a long-term lucrative contract. He was asked if the Giants games are like circled on his calendar, and he goes, no, I'm looking forward to every game. And then he kind of lets out a big smile, like, you guys know I'm looking forward to those ones. So I don't know. I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate, a little personality up there for sure. And I mean, he's talked a lot about his preference. He says that he likes to play a little bit of man end zone. I'm curious to see what the Eagles do there. Like Jonathon Gannon last year, they used a lot of zone. He comes from schemes that use a lot of zone, like coaches that favor zone coverage. So I sort of feel like that's probably what he'll, gravitate toward. But now he's got three really good cornerbacks, I'd say. And, if they want to play man, they kind of have the personnel to do it at this point. Bradberry was better as his own corner last year in New York, but I still think, having the talent to do both, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, and we got a lot of time with JG yesterday, as I mentioned, EJ. He's got everything in the front seven. We haven't seen depth at linebacker with the Eagles in a very long time, and now you could argue there's some depth. The defensive line, you start to see where's Milton Williams going to get some snaps as an elevating player. It's going to be the old nice problem to have. You mentioned the corners, at least on paper. That's one of the best trios in football. The one question mark is safety, but you can't have everything. This team is legitimately hyped up about Marcus Epps. I think we can say that right now, and people can feel confident. No more excuses for Jonathon Gannon. Not that there were before, but he's got everything at his disposal. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. I was talking on Twitter with somebody yesterday. It's like there's a chance, at least, that at the end of next season, we're looking back and we're going, man, we totally overreacted after that year one. He didn't have the personnel that he wanted. This just wasn't, defense built in his image. And I think this year, I mean, they've made so many changes that it's kind of difficult to say that this defense isn't built with his scheme in mind. I'm sure that, maybe some players that they brought in were more just about long-term talent, maybe like Jordan Davis. although Jordan Davis he seems like a really good fit for what Jonathon Gannon wants to do. So I definitely think that this year it kind of is like a no more excuses. He's got a lot of talent on the field. He's got a lot of players that fit what he wants to do, seemingly, like he's got a Jordan Davis and Hassan Reddick, and all of a sudden a 5-man front is actually a really talented 5-man front. Last year when they went in those fronts, sometimes they'd have to put, they'd have Jannard Avery on the field at Sam, and, they'd have guys out of position playing that 4-eye technique, whether it was like Josh Sweat or Ryan Kerrigan. Now you could put Milton Williams at that 4-eye. You could put Jordan Davis at the nose, and you have Hassan Reddick at the Sam. Like, those are huge upgrades. So definitely a lot more talent in the formations that he likes to run, for sure. And just generally, I think the defense is a lot better than it was last year. So I definitely think this will be more of a fair test for Gannon. And I think you're right. It's kind of like no more excuses.
All right. You mentioned the Sam, the Will, the Mike. Have those become obsolete terms? Will they be obsolete terms with this year's Philadelphia Eagles team? Because Jonathon Gannon seems to want to be as flexible, as optional as possible, that he doesn't really want to, and he didn't give you guys yesterday, at least not on the record, any definitive things he wants to do with the defense this year. He just wants to be able to make it up as he goes along from play to play. Do you make up the names of the linebackers as well?
The Mike and the Will, I think, are pretty interchangeable with Gannon. I think that all those guys know how to play both. The Sam is its own type of thing most of the time. That's like a defensive end almost. So I do, and I don't know. I take him a little bit at his word with this, like, oh, I don't have a scheme. We don't run anything. Like we can change it up every week. He has his preferences, But and most of the time you're going to see him in cover 2 high, 5-man front, like, 2 cover linebackers off the ball. And they're going to run a lot of the same stuff, I feel like. So I don't always buy this, like, we don't have a scheme, but I think the philosophy is sound in that, like, you don't want to be like, I'm always going to run this exact look because it's the one that I like the most and it's the one that works most of the time, even if I don't have the players for it, even if we don't have the matchups for it. But for the most part, I do think that he has a scheme. He has a way he likes to play.
Yeah, he does. I've talked to JG a lot over the years. He broke out overhang, I think, for the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Has he mentioned that in Philadelphia?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
no.
I think he broke it out for the first time yesterday. And that's the Hassan Reddick type player.
Yeah.
In that Sam linebacker. So I think it was interesting. I think he's a little bit more comfortable this year.
Definitely.
And maybe because he got all the head coaching interviews. And, I thought he was getting that Houston job for a while. So I think it was Howie who mentioned we're renting Jonathon Gannon. Do you think they are? Do you think, this is it 1 year and he's going to be a head coach?
Yeah, I sort of think that's where it's going. I mean, like, I know some fans like really get like they don't get it with Gannon, but it's like
they
when you hear him,
if you met him for 5 minutes.
I was about to say, once you hear him talk and you sort of hear him, like when you hear him talk football, it makes sense. Like, listen, like the results weren't as good as they should have been last year. I thought that, I was on the record as being surprised that like he had as much attention as he did early on, but I also said, like, the way he interviews, like, it made sense that he was a finalist once he got interviews. Because it's just like he does have a very like innovative view of defense. He's definitely approaching it the way that a lot of the young, like, you think about Brandon Staley, you think about like Robert Saleh. He's approaching it like in line with like those guys, especially Staley. So I do kind of think that I'm sure he'll, unless things go terribly wrong here this next season, like I'm sure he'll get attention for head coaching jobs again next year. And again, anytime he interviews, I would say you can't count him out because he just is, even just like the way that he thinks about as a defensive coordinator, like positional value, like he's got a background as a scout. And that shows up, like, he definitely like thinks about, where he wants money spent on his defenses. And, he has a very like macro view of an organization, even as a defensive coordinator, which I think will bode well once he's a head coach.
All right, let's get over to the offensive side. John and I haven't talked about the running back position I don't think all week, as a matter of fact. I know you guys got a chance to talk to Boston Scott yesterday, and everyone who covers the Eagles, follows the Eagles, roots for the Eagles, believe they're going to throw the ball more this year by hook, by crook. However, they go out and get A.J. Brown. Oh, they plan on throwing the ball more. How about out of the backfield? That's still throwing the football. I would not have called it a strength for Jalen Hurts last year, flaring the ball back, hitting their guy coming out of the backfield. I wouldn't say he was bad at it, but I just wouldn't call it a strength. How big a component of the offense is that going to be this year, throwing to backs out of the backfield, whether they start in the backfield or they're split out to a wide receiver position, a slot position? How big a part of the offense do you think that's going to be this year, EJ?
Well, I think anytime Jalen Hurts is your quarterback, the running back's role in the passing game can be a little minimized because, like, he's his own check down. You know, like he's just going to, instead of checking it down to the running back in the flat, he's going to be like, I can make something happen with my legs. So I think that's why, you know, you sort of don't really know. Like, I agree. Like, you don't really know. Like, is Jalen not good at hitting the running back out of the backfield? It's because I don't think he does it very often just because he'd rather keep the ball in his hands. But a name to watch with that, especially like if you want to break a running back out in the slot, is Kenny Gainwell. Like, you know, I sort of thought he had an up and down rookie season. The touchdown production was really good. Sorry for fantasy owners who, you know, had a Miles Sanders. But
Miles.
that's tough.
The big goose egg.
Yeah, seriously. But no, I think Kenny Gainwell could definitely have a bigger role in the second year. I think he showed enough last year to sort of make you feel like he's going to be a part of their running back rotation for a while. Definitely don't think we have like a Donnell Pumphrey or anything on our hands here. So yeah, I mean, I would say that, and then the other thing I would say is like Miles Sanders, it's kind of just been weird with him in these drops the last few years. Like his rookie season, he did not have a problem with drops. Like he was pretty good catching the ball out of the backfield. It was like, I remember in that offseason following his rookie season, he was like, you know, I want to be the next Christian McCaffrey. Like, you know, I want to be like, you know, a running back that affects the passing game just as much as the run game. And ever since then, he's dropped like 10 passes a season. So, like, I don't know what's going on with that. But, yeah, I mean, maybe this will be the year he puts it together.
Man, it's contract year. That could always spur a player to have a big year.
Sure,
Let's talk about Jalen, though, because you brought him up. And, you know, the Eagles offseason has been interesting. Look, I think everybody focused on, no matter what they say, like they were trying to get Russell Wilson to change his mind. They were serious with Deshaun Watson, although I don't think they would have ever went to where the Browns went with the contract. But, you know, when it came to that other level of quarterbacks, they had no interest in Jimmy Garoppolo, even if he's healthy, which he's not yet. No interest in Baker Mayfield when he came available. Even Kyler Murray, nothing, who's an extremely, extremely talented player. So that's a very good sign that the Eagles, all right, if we can get a superstar, we'll think about that. But otherwise, we're very happy with Jalen Hurts. Why the heck is Howie Roseman talking about Nick Foles? Now, I think it was overblown.
Yeah, I do too.
Why even make the call, though? Why? In this city, EJ?
I feel like it was overblown a little bit. I think that it was probably the type of thing that they were doing. They're doing their due diligence based off of like.
Don't even do the due diligence.
But I think if it's like, you know, because I do think that if the right opportunity had presented itself, that they would have moved Gardner. I mean, if Gardner had a starting opportunity, I think it would have been best for both of them to let him pursue it. And I think if Gardner had gotten traded, or, you know, I don't see how they would have released him, but if he had gotten traded, I feel like they probably would have been in on Nick Foles, but but I mean, I agree. I hear what you're saying. I mean, just the frenzy was really something the other day. Like sometimes it still surprises me how much people get charged up over this. It's like, man, like
it is unbelievable.
He won the only Super Bowl in franchise history.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think it would affect Jalen that much.
No, he's not built like, he's not wired like that. Yeah,
absolutely not. But you know who it would affect? Nick Sirianni. And I think people forget, you know, he's a young coach. You know, we've had so much, you know, everybody says it's, you know, if Jalen Hurts has a good season, you know, the Eagles have everything on offense to be successful. Defense, we talked, it's on JG, put all the pieces together. Nick is kind of skated under the radar. Everybody's like, oh, Nick's a good coach. Nick's doing a solid job. Nobody talks about him. The minute Jalen Hurts, if he loses, say, week 2, Monday night against Minnesota, week 3 against Carson Wentz, and Nick Foles is here, why would you put that on Nick Sirianni's plate?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you there. I do feel like, though, this year, like, now that Nick Foles is out of the picture, at least,
yeah,
I do feel like this year, even if the offense struggles, I think the onus is going to be more on Jalen than it'll be on Nick. I mean, I agree with you. Like, there were times last year where we were like, how many screen passes are you going to call? Like, and I think it was more just like, I feel like he was a young coach, sort of like, yeah, I'm going to run all these RPOs, and every time we have the box count we want, we are chucking it to a bubble screen on the outside and taking advantage of that. And finally, he was like, you know what? Like, I've got the best offensive line in football. I've got a quarterback who's +1 in the run game. I'm not calling an RPO and hoping that we get the count we want. I'm just going to run the ball. So I don't know. I think that last year, like, his adaptability was definitely something that was encouraging, but he also did, like, have the wrong idea at the beginning of the year. So, but I don't know. I do feel like this year is going to be such a, evaluation process for Jalen. I think that if they do struggle, I feel like Nick might still skate under the radar a little bit.
AJ, if you knew me, you would know that one of my favorite things to do is ask hypothetical questions. Some people don't like them at all, but I like them a lot. But if there's anything that I may like more than hypothetical questions, it's crystal ball questions. So I'm going to ask you to get out your Eagles crystal ball and tell me what player, for whatever reasons, if you want to expand on the reasons, please do so, will get the most snaps at right guard for the Philadelphia Eagles this year.
So I heard you guys talking about this earlier. I think it's Isaac Seumalo. I mean, like, I hear what you guys are saying about the durability stuff, and you're right about that. And it might be that Jack Driscoll steps in for him, but Jack Driscoll hasn't been durable either.
No,
I mean, like, I feel like I was lower on Isaac Seumalo, but I really did. I took Jason Kelce at his word last year. I mean, he said something along the lines of, like, you guys don't really talk about him, but he has become one of the best guards in football and, like, one of the most important parts of our offensive line. And that surprised me. But I mean, Kelce knows more about offensive line play than I do. So,
but then again, Kelce loves everybody.
True. Yeah, that's fair.
He throws terms like Tesla stock on guys who can't even get onto the field. So
come on.
I love Kelce, but I take what he says about his teammates with a little bit of a grain of salt, because he's always going to pump up his teammates. I think he sees that as a responsibility as a leader of this football.
The Tesla stock is apparently, I'm no stock market expert, but I heard Tesla stock's not doing great.
No, it's not. Yeah. So maybe Kelce is that bright. He was like, we all took it as a positive.
Oh, he was going crystal ball on us for the mark. Little did I know. Shame on me. I should have put that 2 and 2 together.
Never doubt Jason Kelce. You should know that, Jody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were talking something else. I think you're right. The question with Isaac, the only question, because Jeff Stoutland has raved about him over the years. And this, I started thinking about it before they released Nate Herbig. I said, Isaac makes a lot of money, and it does seem like Stoughton and Nick Sirianni really, really like Jack Driscoll, and he played well, and there's durability issues with both players, as you mentioned, EJ. And I started thinking, well, maybe they might move on sort of James Bradbury-like from Isaac Seumalo, just because he's really expensive as a guard, and he's certainly not going to be backup at that salary. But then they released Nate Herbig, so I think that cleared things up a little bit. I want to go to tackle. I don't know if you heard us talking about that part. Last year when Lane had to lead the team, they flipped Jordan Mailata to right tackle and put Andre Dillard at left tackle, which I think the ability to do that makes Andre more valuable. I think a lot of people said, well, they have to trade Andre Dillard. He can't be a backup. He's got no versatility. You've heard it, yada, yada, yada. But having Jordan, the versatility he has, that's a little bit of a luxury. Do you think the Eagles look at it that way and think Andre Dillard's more valuable because they know they could move Jordan and he can just be a left tackle?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan is like it's a credit to him for sure.
Yeah.
First,
he doesn't know he's a star. That's
right.
what I said, EJ. He doesn't know he's a star.
I think that speaks to like, man, it's just like both Andre Dillard and Jordan Mailata are like really like cautionary tales for me. Like on what you see in training camp, you got to be careful sometimes because like I felt bad because Andre Dillard when he played left tackle looked pretty good in the games.
Yeah.
But and I felt bad because it's like for the last 2 years I've been telling Eagles fans like this guy he looks awful. Like he's getting beat by third-team defensive ends, and then he goes out on the field and plays well. And Mailata, same thing. I mean,
Joe Ostman.
I'm about to say Joe Ostman, who just got released, was destroying him in practice for the first few years of his career. And I think like maybe that is always like in the back of his head is like I used to get my butt kicked in practice every day, and now I'm the starting left tackle on this team. So I agree with you. I think that the fact that Mailata is willing to do it makes Dillard more valuable. But I also think, I think that there's a lot of value for another team. I'm surprised. I honestly thought he'd get traded because, I mean, he's a starting quality left tackle. He's better than some left tackles on other teams. So I don't know. I definitely think that he's got some value as a left tackle. You just can't move him. I mean, I think it's just more of a a mentality thing than anything with him.
Starting left tackle and a highly paid starting left tackle at that. Mailata did get his payday this year, which he definitely earned. Yeah. All right, last one for me, EJ. We haven't gotten to the quarterback yet. We haven't actually talked much about the quarterback last couple of weeks here on the show because the Eagles have made so many other moves, and I think that's a good thing that we're not narrow focusing on Jalen Hurts, what he is, what he can be, what he has to be, the pressure that's on him and the like. Sorry, Jalen, we got to throw the Klieg light back on you for a millisecond. Off-schedule plays. Play is called, supposed to run one way, defense beats someone on the offensive line. You got to get out of the pocket. The off-schedule plays. Hurts made some big ones this past year. He made some mistakes on those last year as well. He certainly seems to prefer and be better rolling to his right than he does rolling to his left. What is the one aspect that Hurts absolutely positively must be better at this upcoming season in out of the pocket off schedule plays?
In that regard, I would say being comfortable targeting all spots of the field. I mean, he really like his passing charts are like shockingly reliant on throwing outside the hashes. And that's a thing with like shorter quarterbacks a lot of the time. But with him, it's like when he's out of the pocket, it shouldn't matter because, the thing is like, oh, well, they can't see over the offensive line, so that's why they don't do it. But I think with him, it's more of a reluctance to trust what he sees like down the middle of the field and, sort of like not always wanting to take the risks and not make like, just reading it maybe a little bit slower. And that's something he should get better at. Like it would be a surprise to me if he didn't improve like reading defenses from year to year. So that's like this the sliver of hope I'll give people who really want to see Jalen Hurts catch on as a franchise quarterback is like the things that he has to get better at, accuracy aside, like I think the thing he needs to get better at is really like hitting reads on time, making better decisions. And like that stuff he'll get better at. Like that's just playing time. The accuracy stuff, I think like, that's a concern. I think the arm strength thing is overblown with him. I think he's got a plenty strong enough arm. Doesn't have a cannon. There are times where you're like, like, I remember one of the throws against Tampa Bay. I can't remember the play, but it was like he threw it toward the end zone. And it's just like, you did not put enough on that. Like there are times where you feel like his arm sort of defies him, but I don't think arm strength is an issue with him. But yeah, I would definitely say like on these off schedule things in particular, it's like you have to be able to hit the guys on the scramble drill that go inside instead of all the ones running to the sideline. So
EJ Smith at EJ Smith 94, no periods, by the way, in the name, EJ Smith. Read him, Inquirer.com. His latest on Jonathon Gannon, reworking his scheme around the new additions. You can check out EJ there. I'll leave you with this, EJ. We'll keep it with the quarterback. Do you think he's already got Dallas Goedert to use in the middle of the field? Now you got a huge receiver. You think those big bodies help Jalen Hurts be more comfortable, because those passing charts you mentioned, they look like a donut, basically. They avoid the middle of the field.
I think that those are like the types of receivers that he like will do the best with, honestly, is that Dallas Goedert, AJ Brown. Like, as good as Devontae is, I do think that sometimes Devontae could use like a quarterback that is a little bit more like predicated on timing and, accuracy. Like, I don't think that Jalen and Devontae are like perfectly matched as a quarterback receiver combo. I think AJ Brown is like exactly what you want for Jalen Hurts, like contested catches, just like go win, I think Jalen will give him the chances to do it. I mean, you saw he really liked targeting Dallas Goedert late in the season last year. I definitely think that that'll probably help for sure. And even if it's not targeting the middle of the field, just like having, a big target on the outside will help him, I think.
All right, EJ, I lied. I do have one more question for you. Sticking with the off schedule that we talked about with Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Off schedule, checking your sources here. Where is Nick Sirianni going with competitions when camp opens up? Is tetherball a possibility? Is cricket in the offing for the Eagles? What is going to be this year's camp competition venue that Nick Sirianni will use to see if he can get a read on his players on how badly they want to win?
I thought you were about to like ask me if there was like a left tackle controversy or something.
No. We're a little light to wrap things up here, AJ.
The only inside information that I could share with you is that we were in the media room, like the auditorium yesterday, and I'm looking at that basketball hoop that they put up. That thing doesn't look so good. That thing looks like it might be coming down soon. So what I'll tell you is that the basketball might actually have to stop at some point, because they might have to repair that wall. It looks like some offensive or defensive lineman went up to dunk on that thing, and the whole thing kind of like shifted in the wall.
I think Daryl Dawkins was in there. I don't know. I saw Anthony Harris throwing up a couple Ben Simmons like free throws. The Eagles put that on. That was harsh that they put that on their website. But I did see a football in the auditorium for the first time. I never see a football.
What a novel concept.
Yeah. What a novel concept.
That is funny. EJ, great stuff. We appreciate you coming on with us. Now that you're part of the fam, we are going to get you back whenever your peeps allow you to join our peeps. Thanks for doing it with us today. We will certainly talk to you again down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.